Ready? We all ready, everybody? Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to call our meeting to order. We're going to have a roll call by our city clerk, Kathy Valdez.
The record shall reflect that all members are present.
In accordance with the Brown Act, first we have to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you all rise, Councilmember Franklin will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, in accordance with the Brown Act, I'd like to announce that as a result of convening simultaneous meetings, the members of our Buena Sanitation District will receive compensation of $147.75 for the district meeting pursuant to Buena Sanitation District Ordinance 2006-1. So I'd like to remind everyone that the Vista Municipal Code requires members of the public to observe order and decorum at the meeting and to conduct themselves in a courteous manner. The ordinance was adopted to allow for public input and to facilitate city business without disruption of the meeting. Applause is appropriate for the items listed under the presentation portion of the agenda only. Attendees should remain seated during the meeting, and persons needing to stand are requested to step outside the city council chambers where the video and audio of the meeting are playing. And this is also listed on the agenda cover sheet. I don't know if there's students here today. Are there students here today? Some? Yes? Okay. Students that wishing to receive credit for attending this evening's meeting must stay for a minimum of 1 hour. However, we ask that you stay for the completion of an item rather than leaving in the middle of a discussion. And when you're ready to leave, you can ask one of the sheriff deputies or a staff member in the back of the room to sign your paper. To speak on an item on the agenda, please fill out a speaker slip with the number of the item you want to speak on and give it to the city clerk's secretary. And speaker slips are available just outside the council chambers on the table out there. So with that, we will go to the approval of the agenda with our city manager, Patrick Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no changes to the agenda this evening.
We did have a closed session, so our city attorney, Daryl Piper, will bring us out of our closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. The council met in closed session to discuss the potential litigation item listed as CS1 on this evening's closed session agenda. No action was taken. Thank you.
Okay, we have one presentation this evening. Starting in 2015, and every 2 years, we conduct a community survey to learn how our residents are feeling about city services and our community in general. The results help to frame our 2-year goal-setting process. We have our 2020 through 2022 goal-setting workshop next week, Tuesday. So at this time, I want to invite Josh Williams, President and Principal of BW Research, to present the results of our 2019 resident survey.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members, city staff, Vista residents. Thank you for having me here tonight. I want to do 3 things. I want to talk a little bit briefly about the methodology of the survey that we did, just so you kind of know how we gathered that information. Promise not to spend too much time on that, but that is my favorite. We'll talk a little bit about the key findings, and then lastly, we'll talk about what this means for the city of Vista. So with that, I will jump right into it. The survey was done between October 21st and October 31st. It was a phone and web survey, phone, both mobile and landline. It represents the adult residents in the city of Vista. We completed 410 surveys. Margin of error is just under 5% with a 95% level of confidence. Both the phone and the web were available and were completed in Spanish and English. And they were evenly split, or just about evenly split, between phone and web completes. So, any questions? But I'm happy to dive into that, but we'll go on from there. With that, one of the key findings, just under 3/4 of residents were either very or somewhat satisfied with the City of Vista's overall provision of services. This is a good but not great number. You can see that the number's gone down a little bit. It's gone down about 9 to 10% over the last 4 years from 2015 to 2019. And really, we see a corresponding increase. I will say This does kind of track with some of the national and statewide surveys we've seen in terms of overall satisfaction. In general, overall satisfaction with government, either local, state, and even national, have declined in that period as well. Another question that we asked up front, that's one of our major metrics, is do residents feel that the city government can have a positive impact in their life or a positive impact on the city and have confidence? And you can see that the number is that number's about 60%, 61%, which is about 10%, 11% below the overall provision of services, which is very consistent. Typically, whenever we ask, what's your overall satisfaction with the city's provision of services, overall confidence in city government is typically about 10% below that, and we see that trend here as well. When we dig into kind of the specific issues, what are the issues that are of most importance? Roads, congestion, homelessness. These are the issues that have really kind of stood out in terms of importance. These are the issues that when we asked them what was the number one thing that you could do to improve the quality of life without providing any kind of potential responses. Those are the ones that came up. We also then tested specific city services, and you can see we asked both what are the importance of different city services, and then what is their current satisfaction. And you can see that traffic congestion, repair and maintain local streets and roads, fire protection, local sheriff services, those are the ones that were most important. You can see at the bottom, providing safe and convenient ways to get around by bicycle, recreation programs for adults. These were the lowest importance of the 12 items that we tested. One of the important kind of relationships we want to look at is what are the issues that are of high importance and high satisfaction, and also what are the ones that are of high importance but relatively low satisfaction. And we can see that local fire protection, local sheriff services, supporting a healthy business climate, providing recreation programs for the youth. These were all programs that had high importance, according to residents, and also above average and high levels of satisfaction. So these are the areas that were important to residents, that they were generally satisfied with, or more satisfied on average with. The ones that are the other end of the spectrum that had high importance but relatively low satisfaction, again, go back to those ones we've talked about: repair and maintain local streets and roads, manage traffic congestion on city streets, provide city services and programs to reduce homelessness. Those were the three that really stood out in terms of high importance and relatively low satisfaction. With that, we also saw about 7 in 10 or 70% of residents indicated the quality of life in Vista was either excellent or good. And again, this is a good number. So we saw the number has declined a little bit from 2015, but not too much. We not only ask about the current assessment of quality of life, we also look at the direction. Do they feel like the quality of life is getting better, getting worse, or staying the same? And one of the, I think one of the positive findings is that your relationship of getting better to getting worse is almost 2 to 1, which is an important ratio we look at. And we can see that just under 80% say its quality of life is either staying the same or getting better. We also asked residents to indicate what they thought the best parts of living in Vista was. And this is an open-ended question, so we didn't provide any potential responses. Your top 4 responses, and ones that all got over 10%: climate and weather, central location, safe, quiet, peaceful, clean community, and a strong sense of community. So those were all received over 10% without any, without providing any potential responses. Rural small town feel was just under that with about 8%. About 3/4 of residents rated the downtown as either excellent or good. This is a good number. You also saw relatively high usage of residents who are going there at least once a month to the downtown area, even those residents that don't live in or particularly close to the downtown area. We also asked the question, what would residents like to see more of in the downtown? And public spaces such as parks, live entertainment venues such as theater and music, family-friendly entertainment such as mini golf or go-karts, all received over 40% of residents said they'd like to see more of, and very few, small percentages, less than 10% saying that they needed fewer. About 40% of your residents visit the downtown at least once a week. Again, a good number, particularly compared to other communities with the downtown area. More than half of your respondents, and actually about 2/3 of your respondents, feel that crime has remained the same over the past 12 months. They either feel it's the same or they're not sure, which is an indication. About 20% believe it's getting worse. About 12% feel it's getting better. I will say it's interesting, and somebody that studies kind of actual crime data and the perception of crime, these two are not related. And one of the challenges that we're seeing with kind of news and increased cycles of information, we tend to perceive crime as getting worse, oftentimes when it's going the opposite direction. So this is a valuable indicator, not because it's necessarily accurate of what's going on in crime, but because it does give you a perception, it gives you a measure of where people believe it is. Again, the number of 20% increasing is not a particularly high one, so I don't think it's worrisome, but it is, from what I've seen, I think the crime numbers are actually going down. And that's actually consistent with what we've seen throughout California, even outside of the state, in that there's a perception of crime getting worse when it's actually getting better. And again, I think that's a function of the media environment that we're in, and just kind of the bias towards, bad news sells more than good news, as sad as that may be. Just under about 6 in 10 residents indicated that crime invested does not change their activities. And so, there is a large minority that it is, but about 60% it's not impacting their behaviors. One of the other interesting questions we asked residents where they currently get their information about the city. Was it social media? Is it an e-newsletter? Is it, other sources of information? One of the interesting thing is the e-newsletters provided by the city was the preferred, had the biggest difference between the preference. About 20% of residents preferred it, but only 10% are using it now. So we think it has the potential to grow a lot. Residents would like to use it more. Social media is actually in the other direction. It's the one that's used the most, but there's the biggest difference in terms of preference. It's about a 20% gap between what they're actually using and what they would prefer to use. So nobody wants to use Nextdoor or Facebook, but they all tend to be using it. That's not true. I'm generalizing, but we see that in the results. And we can see those results there. Social media like Facebook, Nextdoor, and Twitter, 44% is current source of information. Only 23% have it as their preferred. The city e-newsletter is the opposite. About 20%, it's their preferred source of information. Only 10% are currently using it now. So what does this mean? Let's talk kind of some of the findings and what they mean for the city. 7 in 10 residents rated their quality of life in Vista as excellent or good. And almost twice as many indicated it was getting better compared to getting worse. Within the city, there are populations that are generally less satisfied. So one of the things that we saw is your younger residents, 18 to 29, only about 8% of your younger residents were very satisfied with the job that the city is doing to provide city services. The residents 16 over, that number is about 44%. And we saw a very, clear, as you got older, you're more likely to stay very satisfied. And yet, one of the interesting findings is your youngest group, your 18 to 29, were most optimistic about the quality of life in Vista getting better. So they don't seem to be very happy now, but they seem to think it's going to get better. I don't see that. Typically, people that are happy tend to think things are going to get better, and people that are less satisfied tend to think it's going to get worse. That's not the case here. And that's somewhat anomalous in terms of looking at other cities and regions. And I think it's a good thing. I don't know. I'll let you kind of make that determination. I will say dissatisfaction with the city's overall provision of services can primarily be found in specific population, renters, non-white residents. Again, we already talked about that younger adults, 8% very satisfied compared to, 45 of 60 and older. Vista is generally perceived as safe with above average ratings for local sheriff, and a majority of residents they're not impacted by crime. It's not changing their behavior. Homelessness particularly and crime is top of mind with residents. Homelessness is one that's jumped a lot in the last 2 years. It was at 2% in 2017. 2% of residents said it was their big issue. In this survey, it was 9%. You typically don't see, that's a fourfold increase in two years. Downtown remains a popular option. 3/4 of your residents visit the downtown regularly, and 3/4 rate as excellent or good. About 45% of your residents would like to see live entertainment, family-friendly entertainment like go-karts or things of that nature. Okay, I think that's my last slide. Yes. So, any questions?
Councilmember Green.
Sorry, microphone on button. Took an extra finger this time. First of all, thank you so much for that report. Really appreciate it. I love that we come up with this data. It's never good to hear that the community is less satisfied than they were last year, so we definitely have our work ahead of us. I do like that they like our downtown and that there's a really high rating of downtown in our businesses, and they think that we have the right amount or we need more businesses because before we didn't have enough, and we used to have to travel outside of our city to go eat and do things like that, so that's good that that's great. Satisfaction-wise, the fire protection, sheriff's fantastic, our economic development department's killing it, Parks and Rec's great. This is what we hear all the time is the roads, the traffic, and the homelessness. And I think those are constant things that we're working on as council members. We're constantly out in the streets talking to our community about it and trying to figure out new ways we can do it. In a couple weeks, we have our final strategic plan to address homelessness. And I hope that our community will show up and see what our final plan is and see that we are actually doing something for it. But overall, I just wanted to say thank you for the survey. Thank the residents who went online, took the time to sit online on the phone call to fill out the survey. We do hear you. We are listening, and we will work to hopefully have some better results next year and kind of get a little bit better ratings. But thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you for all the work you did. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is pretty consistent with what I hear from constituents when I'm out and about and we're having conversations. So I'm not really surprised with any of this. But I did want to ask you, we have, according to your methodology overview, 88,892 residents in the 18 years and older universe that you were targeting, but with only 410 respondents. So is that par? Is that normal?
Yeah. I mean, typically, what you're looking for is three things. You want to make sure it's random, right? That's important. But we also want to make sure the challenge in today's survey environment is you want to make sure that you're talking to all the different kind of segments of your population. So the surveys, not only is it representative by geography, so you have 3 zip codes, the zip code distribution, is consistent with that in terms of the population. It's consistent with age, gender, and ethnicity. Ethnicity is a little harder because we don't have a 100% response rate on that. So that's the one we're good, but it's not perfect, right? But age, gender, and geography are all representative of the adult population. Typically in city satisfaction surveys, you do between 400 to 1,000. The only reason you do 1,000 is not to get your overall margin of error really down. It's really to be able to look at subpopulations. So let's say I wanted to look at females under the age of, or over the age of 45, or I wanted to look at males who live in the northern part of the city. That would be the reason to have a sample size much over 400. 400 is kind of the standard because your margin of error is less than 5%, given a 95% level of confidence.
Right. I just thought I would ask. It seems like such a small number for the size of city that we have.
Yeah.
But like I said, it does reflect along the lines of what I hear out in the community. So great job. Thank you very much for this. And I do appreciate everybody, 410 of you who responded to this. So thank you.
Thank you. And I love the methodology question. I could talk about that for hours. So good stuff. Thank you.
Councilmember Contreras.
I think it's really amazing that our young adults are seeing such a optimistic future on the horizon. And the only thing I have to say about that is just to our youth and to our young adults, please continue to be involved with your city because your participation does make a huge difference. And bring a friend. Make sure you always try to bring a friend to council meetings. And, we have a youth commission. You can apply. We have other commissions. Once you get too old, you can't be on the youth commission. So just keep your eyes open for different opportunities to be involved with your community because there are a lot of different access points, and sometimes we're just, as residents living a busy life, we're not exactly sure where to go. So just know that I have an open door, and I am always really excited to talk to new people about how they can get involved with their city because up here we really do care that people see hope in the future, especially for our younger adults because we do have a pretty young city. with a median age of like around 33 or so. So, yeah, I'm really happy to hear that even though right now it may not seem, cupcakes and rainbows, but in the future they're looking at what we're doing, the policy, the buildings that are going up, different activities, and they see something good on the horizon. So that makes me really happy.
Good.
Okay, well, thank you. I don't have any other speakers here, so thank you for doing that. I think that if the young people would take the Leadership Academy also to find out more what goes on in the city, that would help. And this will help us in our goal setting. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Thanks. Okay, with that, we'll go on to our consent calendar. The recommendations on the following consent calendar will be enacted in one motion unless an item is removed from the calendar. Any member of the public can remove an item by submitting a request to speak card to the clerk secretary, and items removed from the consent calendar will be considered immediately following adoption of the calendar. We have 12 consent items this evening, and Councilmember Green, did you want to pull something?
Yeah, I wanted to pull item number C3 and item number C7, please. And then I would like to make a motion to approve the balance of the consent calendar.
Any from this public? Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. So then we will go to item C3, appointment to fill unscheduled Public Arts Commission vacancy.
All right, and item C3 has to do with the appointment to fill the Public Arts Commission, and I did conduct interviews, and I'm happy to say that Amanda May Fitzgerald, who I call Mandy May, is here in the audience today. Mandy, if you could go ahead and raise your hand. And I just wanted to acknowledge her and thank her for applying, and know that we look forward to you serving on our Public Arts Commission. So with that, I move to approve item number C3 as presented.
Okay, I second it if nobody seconds it. Okay, please cast your votes on that. That passes unanimously. That takes us to the next one, which is C7, Kites Over Vista approval.
So I am a sucker for art, and knowing that we're getting new Kites Over Vista, I just thought that everybody in attendance and possibly the residents who watch the live feed could see the new kites in Vista that our Public Arts Commission has chosen to install here in the new future. So thank you so much for being here, Theron.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Theron Dykeman. I'm the Director of Recreation and Community Services for the City of Vista. I'll briefly give you an overview of the Kites Over Vista program and the kites that were selected by and recommended by the Public Art Commission this year. City's Kites Over Vista programs provided a venue to showcase sculptures in the public areas of downtown Vista for now this is the 12th year. In October of 2019, staff released a call to artists for the 12th exhibit, and 12 kite models were submitted by 9 different artists. And then on February 4th of this year, the Public Art Commission selected several of these 6 kites for public display. I'll go into the slideshow. First one is Aeolian Butterfly. It's by Dave Weaver and David Terrell. They are returning artists through the program for us. You can read the concept there, but this will also have a transmitter where passersby within 100 feet can tune into radio station 90.5 FM, and they'll have a sound component. I'll describe it as that. That ties in with the kite concept. Second one is Beacon by Kellen Shanahan. The concept involves several different aspects of marine life, chaparral vegetation, rolling hills, things that not only define the Southern California landscape, but also City of Vista. The third one is Dark Ship by Norberto Estrada. This is a new artist for us. It's designed to show a different perspective about ships and the way they move, created in the base of pirate ships. Dreamcatcher Totems by Vicki Leon. Vicki is a San Diego artist. I'm not sure if she's done Kite Force before, but at the Linear Park at Veterans Park on Paseo Santa Fe, she was the artist who did one of the art walls there. It has 3 square windows that are lit up with solar LEDs. But this is kite-like shapes, and this will also be supported with solar LED. Midnight Nectar by Alex Gall is a returning local artist for us. Concept behind this piece is Vista's City Flower in the Bird, the California Lilac, and Anna's Hummingbird. This, I believe, was the top vote getter for the Public Art Commission. And then finally, Sea Life by Noe Estrada, also a new artist for us through the Kites Over Vista program, but Noe does a lot of Vista in Bloom boxes and other artwork around Vista as well. This piece is designed to represent sea life in the awareness of ocean diversity and to bring joy to the people around it. Total project costs, I'll wrap it up with this, is for Kites Over Vista is estimated at $20,500. That includes artist stipends, poles, installation estimates as well. With that, that concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
And just so I'm clear, the prices that are listed in our agenda report, those are the prices that they'll actually sell the art piece for after it's being done on consignment. Is that correct?
That is correct. Those prices are given to us by the artist.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much. With that, I move to approve item C7 as presented. Thank you for your work, sir, and thank you, Public Arts Commission.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, so please cast your votes. That motion passes unanimously. So that moves us on to our public hearings, and we have one public hearing this evening. It's a public hearing regarding a proposed annexation reorganization at 1435 Olive Avenue. So the public hearing is now open. Community Development and Engineering Director John Conley is going to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Michael Ressler, our principal planner, will be making the presentation this evening.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. The project before you tonight is the Olive Avenue annexation. The application number is P17-0388, which is a request for annexation, pre-zoning, general plan amendment, tentative subdivision map. The subject site is located on the north side of Olive Avenue, west of Granada Drive. The site is 4.94 acres. It's 2 legal parcels, and it's currently developed with the single-family home with associated site improvements. The site also maintains a 30-foot wide SDG&E easement that runs along the easterly boundary of the site. Existing land uses surrounding the site include single-family homes to the east, to the south, and to the west, located in the city of Vista, as well as single-family homes to the north and to the west in the city of Oceanside. Staff does note that the City Council recently approved an annexation, general plan amendment, zone change, and a tentative subdivision map for an 8-lot subdivision directly west of the site, which was also a county pocket at that time. The proposed project before you tonight includes an annexation, pre-zoning to an R1 zone, a general plan amendment from rural residential to medium low density residential, as well as a tentative subdivision map to subdivide the 4.94 acres into 15 individual single family lots. Those lots would range in size from 10,015 square feet to 11,800 square feet with a total density of 3.04 dwelling units per acre. The project would also include drainage improvements, wet and dry utilities, as well as a 36-foot wide private street. There's no homes are proposed at this time. However, the future homes would be required to comply with the R1 zoning requirements. The existing general plan land use designation is rural residential, which allows for 1 dwelling unit per acre. The proposal would be to change the land use designation to medium low density residential, with the maximum density of 5 dwelling units per acre, which is consistent with the surrounding residential properties located within the city of Vista. The current zoning of the site is A70, limited agriculture in unincorporated San Diego County. The proposed pre-zoning would be R1 residential, again consistent with the surrounding properties located within the city. The proposed tentative subdivision map would include 15 individual single-family lots, a 36-foot wide private street accessing this development, as well as 2 bioretention basins located on the southeast and northwest corner of the site. The landscape improvements have been designed to comply with the city's landscape ordinance, including street trees and slope erosion control. General plan consistency, the lots range in size from 10,015 square feet to 11,800 square feet, which is consistent with the medium low density residential land use designation within the general plan, as well as the R1 zone. It's also consistent with surrounding land uses and zoning within the area, and it is consistent with LUCI policies 13.1 and through 13.5 in regards to annexations. In terms of drainage and sewer issues, the project would connect into the existing sewer and water system, as well as a proposed storm drain system, which would improve the existing on-site drainage conditions. A mitigated negative declaration has been prepared for the project, and that document was circulated between November 14th and December 16th. The mitigation measures identified within that document include cultural resources, biological resources, geology, soils, as well as traffic. 2 letters were received during the comment period, and staff provided responses to those comments, and those are included within your packet tonight. On January 21st, 2020, the Planning Commission recommended City Council approval with a vote of 6-0. And with that, staff is recommending the City Council adopt a resolution approving a mitigated negative declaration for the 15-lot subdivision, as well as adopt a resolution to make an application to LAFCO for the annexation reorganization of the 2 parcels, as well as adopt a resolution approving a tentative subdivision map, a general plan amendment, as well as a zone change for the 15-lot subdivision located on the subject parcels. That includes staff's report, and we're here to answer any questions you might have tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Green, is that from last time or is that this time? Okay.
No speakers on this one?
Only one if there were questions from the engineer, from Ron Holloway, if you need questions from him.
Okay. We could have him ask the questions really quick if you'd like. I don't get, is it on this item right here?
Yeah.
Oh, it's on something else. Okay.
He's the engineer on this project.
Oh, he's
If there is
available for
from
questions.
council, yeah, but he doesn't need to speak.
I
if there's
got you.
no
Sound
questions.
good. So it looks like we're doing a general plan amendment, but my question is, the property is currently, it's in zone in the county, right? If we're annexing, it's not technically city property? Am
That
I
is
wrong?
correct. It's
It is
in the
correct.
county. It's a small pocket of
Yeah,
land.
so how was it part of our general plan if it technically wasn't in the city? It was just zone rural residential because that's how we zone, we just conform with the county zoning per se?
Good question, actually. The city's general plan extends outside our corporate boundary and includes our sphere of influence. And so within the sphere of influence, we apply a land use designation. In the event that it wants to annex, we look at what that designation is planned for.
Wow, and our general plan said that we should have rural residential right in the heart of medium low density lots?
We included it as a rural residential designation because that's what we do for all the lands outside the city that are
Okay.
residential to avoid having people annex and request higher densities.
Okay, so this isn't a huge change per se. This is in conformance with the other lots around. They're all medium low density. The lots in this development are actually going to be a little bit larger than the other homes in the area. It's not like we're slamming a bunch of homes down in a rural community that has homes that are on an acre and we're impeding and congesting their community or anything, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, beautiful. And then it's 15 units on 4.93 acres, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I have no more questions. Thank you. This is my council members.
Councilmember Contreras.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that the proposed change, if it ends up going through and being successful, going through the entire process that it needs to, I definitely don't see an issue with compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood, so it looks good to me.
Deputy Mayor, are you going to push your button? Oh, you did, okay.
I'm trying to. They're not cooperating very well
Okay.
tonight. I agree. I think this is fine. This is going to be good. So with that, Madam Mayor, I would move that we close the public hearing and adopt council resolution approving the mitigated negative declaration for a 15-lot single-family residential subdivision located immediately north of Olive Avenue between Winter Road and the West and Granada Drive, and adopt the resolution making application for LAFCO to annex and reorganize the assessor's parcel numbers as listed, and adopt City Council resolution approving the tentative subdivision map, general plan amendment to change the land use designation as listed. So that's my motion.
I second that amazing motion.
Thank you.
Please cast your votes. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, the next thing is a one discussion item. It's on the Vista Conservancy Walking Trail and Nature Preserve, parcel policy or parcel property transfer. And I'm going to excuse myself. I have a listing actually on a piece of property that abuts that, and so I have a conflict. So I'm going to excuse myself, and our deputy mayor is going to take over the meeting. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so the record will reflect that Mayor Ritter has a conflict and has left the council chambers. And this brings us to item D1, Vista Conservancy Walking Trail and Nature Preserve. Councilman Green is the one who's requested this item to be put on the agenda, so I will ask him to introduce the item. Councilman Green.
Thank you so much, Madam Deputy Mayor. I wasn't going to read my whole letter, but since we're going so quick and I typed this beautiful letter, you guys all get to hear it. So here goes. To my honorable deputy mayor and council members, thank you so much for your time. I humbly come before you to ask for your consideration for the Vista Conservancy Foundation to receive a minimal amount of funding for a fantastic community benefit. I've attached several exhibits for your review and reference, but wanted to make sure that I relayed the following. The Vista Conservancy has been maintaining and utilizing the Vista Conservancy Nature Preserve and Trail along Vale Terrace Drive, which connects Bringle Terrace Park since 1998. This walking trail and preserve have been a fantastic benefit for our community. However, there have been safety risks or concerns with particular stretches of the trail over the years. The Malizia family currently owns a property adjacent to or connecting to the Vista Conservancy Trail. Their property has been the source of excessive deferred maintenance, graffiti, homeless encampments, and drug use, as people know that the vacant property is not maintained or monitored. We now have an opportunity to have that parcel or parcels transfer ownership to our beloved Vista Conservancy Foundation at no cost to the foundation and a minimal cost to us. Being that the property is located in a flood zone along our creek bed and is proposed to remain undeveloped, there is no true value in the land aside from green space and community enjoyment. I would love to make this happen for our city and my district. The benefits of the Vista Conservancy owning this property are constant maintenance, decreased homelessness presence, decreased community nuisance, and increased community enjoyment of this trail. The ask from you today is a one-time credit or payment for $15,000 for the initial cleanup, tree trimming, and preparation for the community, along with an annual continued allocation of $5,000 for general maintenance and upgrades. This trail and biological preserve in our community is a priceless asset and one that, as a city government, we should work hard to maintain and protect. The annual cost is far less than our cost to maintain the entire trail and oversee this stretch of property. Not only is this a community enjoyment enhancement, this is a community safety enhancement and a city statement that we want to preserve and protect parklands and trails for the enjoyment of our community. The cost to make this happen is very minimal in the scope of our overall city expenses, and the benefits will be felt citywide. At our council meeting, we will be able to hear from members of the Vista Conservancy to help paint the picture of what they're trying to accomplish for our city. I do appreciate your time and consideration, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts, questions, and concerns. With that, I do believe the Conservancy people are here as well.
Yes, they are. Thank you, Councilman Green. So I do have 3 speaker slips, including the Conservancy. So I would like to call up Mike Koger to the well here, the podium.
Does this work?
Yes.
Hi, thank you for having me, Deputy Mayor and City Council. I appreciate you allowing us to add this to the agenda and giving us a chance to explain a little bit more. I had a lot more to say, but you had a fantastic letter, so you kind of said it all. But I do have some photos to show you of the Malaysia family property right now. So these were taken over the last 8 months, And each photo represents a different homeless encampment throughout the past 6 to 8 months. As you can see, there's been a lot of different ones popping up, and it seems to be picking up over the past 2 to 3 months. We had the last one, we had 5 shopping carts parked along Vale Terrace for over 3 weeks, and I had contacted the transient sheriffs, but as everybody knows, it's really challenging to catch them there. There's a lot of things that go along with being able to remove them. But thankfully, we were able to do it, and thanks to the city staff as well in Public Works, they assisted with that. So that was the last one. Now, here is the current condition of the Malaysia property. The family has not really, it's pretty much been neglected for at least the past 10 years that we're aware of. And they do not have the funds to take care of it, and they do not have the desire to take care of it. And so we do have the desire. We feel like it would be a great opportunity for the Vista Conservancy to take it over and to make it as beautiful as I think it could be. So we actually, a year ago, we started our overhaul on our own side of the creek on our walking trail, and we have spent the past 8 to 10 months. I believe that we have removed 7 40-foot roll-offs of brush. Thankfully, there's not a whole lot of trash, so a lot of it is brush. That it was a big concern with the neighbors who border the trail. They were nervous about the fires. They were nervous about the homelessness, and so we addressed that. We cleaned our side up, and we spent a lot of time there on both sides, our side, on Malaysia side, met a lot of neighbors, and a consistent thing was homelessness and the fires. And so I really felt like I wanted to help that neighborhood, help the city of Vista, and the Vista Conservancy has rallied, and we've done a really good job, and I know that we can take this on and make this area much safer. So as you can see, there's just a ton of brush, a lot of overgrowth. It crosses over into the trail itself. All of that dead brush, besides, like I said, a fire safety, it's also a great cover for homeless to hide. So the goal is to go in there, remove all of the dead brush, raise the canopies to at least 6 foot high so you can see right through. And we truly believe that this will reduce the issue of homeless throughout that property. So there you are. And if you can see in the top left, or the top photo, that is at Bel Air, and that's the start of the Malaysia property. And that continues down through to Ponderosa. So on the top photo, that was how it looked before. A couple of us spent about 4 hours, and the 2 photos below that is the after. And that was 1 40-foot roll-off itself, and that's maybe 40 feet. So as you can understand, there's going to be a lot of clearing that's required in this area, but that's a sample of what we can do and what we will do. And there's another, this is on the border of the Dr. Ali, who owns one of the vacant lots that is along Vale Terrace. That borders on the backside the Malaysia property, and so this is a before and after as well. And again, at the top photo, as you can see, you can see right through from the opposite side of where we cleared out, you can see the trail. So that's the goal, is to just be able to see the creek, you can see the trail, and make it nice, make it safe.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So we do have a couple of more speakers. So speakers have 3 minutes each. The box on the top of the podium is the timer. It's green for 1.5 minutes or 2.5 minutes. It's yellow for 30 seconds. That's your 30-second warning. So our first speaker is Steve Gronke, our former councilman, Steve Gronke. Welcome back, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I especially want to thank you, Mr. Green, for bringing this item to our attention. You might not be aware of the history of the Vista Conservancy and its relationship to this city. The city helped establish the Vista Conservancy decades ago and kept their relationship going to not only improve, but also to expand the trail. Over the years, the expansion of the trail continued through Capri to Ponderosa, which doubled the size of the trail. Then it went into the Bringle Terrace Park, and we thank you so much for that addition. It's beautiful. And just recently, the Monarch Group, working with the city, extended the trail all the way to Wildwood Park. So you can say right now that trail literally goes from park to park, through Bringle Terrace Park, through the heart of our city, right along a beautiful stream bed. And unfortunately, so you didn't see some of the footage that could have been used to show just how beautiful that amenity is to your city and to your population. So I'm here tonight to just speak to it, to say that the relationship is there already, and we'd like to continue that relationship, and also to reassure you too. I've been on this board for a number of years, and I've seen a number of people come and go. And right now we have a number of young people very excited about the possibilities for this trail and taking it into the future. So I think as you think about this problem and think about this situation and decide on exactly what your commitment would be, just be reassured that there's young people out there that are willing to take up the torch that I'm probably going to pass along and do a good job and make this just the gem that it is right now for all of Vistans, because we see thousands of people go through there every year. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Brooks Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. For record, Brooks Kavanaugh, resident in the general area about 50 years. And about 20 years ago, we had an opportunity to form a group called the Vista Conservancy for purposes of preserving the environmental opportunities along Buena Vista Creek, one of your early sources of water in this community. Still there, still flowing. The fact is that that goal of preserving, protecting, managing, we even adopted, with your help, setbacks so that any new development cannot build within so many feet of the creek. If you walk along the creek, you see there's some buildings awfully close. Well, no more. And, over time, working with you all, we were able to accomplish a number of things. I'm one of the founders on the board, thankful for that. And I certainly support what we are asking. And I will say this, without the support and participation of this city and its interest in the environment, we wouldn't have a conservancy and we wouldn't have this opportunity. So anything you do to help us is truly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh. That's the last of our public speakers, so Councilman Franklin.
Councilman Green, thanks for bringing this forward. Thanks to the members of the Conservancy who invited me out, and I got to tour the trail. I am appreciative of your involvement in the community and your desire to help us make Vista cleaner, to activate this area, to make it an asset for our residents. We really need that, and we really appreciate your involvement and your love for Vista. As I understand, we're spending about $3,200 a year right now maintaining the trail itself.
That's correct. We're spending $3,220 basically on the city's portion of the trail through a private contractor that does litter cleanup 3 days a week and then tree trimming and keeping the trail clean.
So, and I understand there's an additional amount of property that's going to come into the possession of the Conservancy. And so I know we had discussed perhaps matching the payment that we're making now. It seems to me like it's a fairly de minimis amount for the additional land, and there's a benefit to the public. So I'm willing to discuss going up to the $5,000. The $15,000, is that? I know we had talked about the city potentially doing the cleanup. Is there a better efficiency if the city does the work, the initial $15,000 work? Do we have a thought on that from staff?
Well, I think I'd let Councilman Green or Mr. Koger explain how the $15,000 was derived. From a city standpoint, since it's not our property, it's probably better not to have the city involved in the cleanup. But certainly I defer to Councilman Green or others who may know how that $15,000 was derived. I don't have that answer.
Councilman Green, or do you want to defer to Mr. Koger? You wouldn't mind joining us again down front?
Hi. Yes, as far as the 15,000 goes, there, as you can see, there is a lot of cleaning up to do. There's some really tall trees that requires some specific equipment and also talent, I guess you can say. There's some tree trimmers who we would go with that could trim a tree that tall, and so they're not cheap. There's also, that entire area is also filled with poison ivy, and so there's that right there. There's not a whole lot of people out there willing to clean up or remove poison ivy, and so there are some people that have goats that, surprisingly, the goats eat the poison ivy. We pay to feed the goats, and it's not cheap. So there's quite a bit that goes into that, and actually that's probably on the low side of what it will cost. So we also have, we will do fundraisers and things like that to help raise some money as well.
Okay.
So the reason I wanted to ask that is, so we've got it sounds like we have an issue of a gift of public funds that we have to take into account here. Is there any way to develop a nexus that's would be formal between this land and our park system that would?
No, it'd be general fund money. I don't know if you're going down the path of park development fees or not, but it would be general fund money that's needed for this.
You know, I'm at least I'm supportive of awarding the contract for the maintenance of the trail. I am convinced we might have an issue with a gift of public funds, and we've had other nonprofit organizations approach us with requests for funds that we've generally declined to use the city's general fund budget to finance the efforts of C3 organizations. I'm not a definite no, but we got to think through how we do that. But I'm definitely a yes on awarding the Conservancy the contract, and certainly would be willing individually to be a contributor to your cause also. So thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Contreras.
Thank you, Councilmember Franklin. Actually, some of the similar thoughts that I was having. I just have an issue with the $15,000 as it stands. I do believe in cleaning up the area, making sure it's maintained. It's been a nuisance for a long time, and I think it will only enhance the quality of life in that neighborhood if we actually do some actionable items there to make it more family friendly. But my issue with the $15,000 is that, one, it's not a ton of money, but it is money, right? And I want to be guaranteed that if we were to either provide $15,000 or a monthly amount for the trail to be maintained, I'm not 100% sure if you all are going to be, having your own kind of bid system, if a portion of it is going to be done by the Conservancy itself, and what the limitations of that might look like, because it is pretty technical, as you stated, and even in the presentation talking about that one tree that took 4 hours, right? So I just have a lot of questions about, is this a feasible project for the Conservancy to do? And having a little bit more information as to how the $15,000 is priced out. Because the last thing that we want to be doing up here is providing a lump sum and then not having a finished product. So that's really where I have a little bit of an issue, in just that I don't know enough. I don't know what the process is going to look like. Because when we do something, we do an RFP and we have a bidding process, and it's very transparent to the public. And so I know that we're not going to, there's some issues if we go onto someone else's property, and I understand that. However, I just want to make sure that we are not wasting any public funds whatsoever, and that this is not too big of a job that's outside of the scope of what the Conservancy is able to do. And if you do move forward with some kind of bidding process, what does that look like? So there are just a lot of questions that I need answers to. But I am very supportive of us cleaning up this area. It's going to be an amazing contiguous trail that will take us from urban to more rural periphery of urban, semi-rural, and it's fantastic. But there's just so many questions about that. So I don't know if you have more information regarding that. And then I also have a question regarding the cleanup of the encampments, because in our next meeting, we're going to be discussing the finalized plan of our strategic plan to address homelessness. And I know that we've discussed as a council already setting aside an amount of money for homeless encampment cleanup. And that's also a technical thing, because the last thing I would want is for the Conservancy to go out there and not have the proper types of protection or whatever the case might be if there's a homeless encampment that y'all encounter that has potential hazards. So those are just the questions that I have right now. And if I could get some answers, some closure, a little bit more reassurance, then yeah, I'm not a definite no, but I'm also not a hard yes right now. Just, it's a little obscure for me.
Thank you,
Okay.
Council.
Oh, sorry.
I'm going to see what Councilman Green has to add.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, and I will also let you chime in a little bit as well. And I totally understand what you guys are saying. So it sounds like, as number one, we want to know where we can get the money from. And number two is we want to kind of see like an itemized breakdown per se of what the $15,000 would cover. I included some additional photos in my presentation that I know you guys all probably saw with all the trees that were down and the things. So I know there's an excessive amount of cleanup in there. And if there was any way to say, we've already looked into this, and I think that's kind of what Councilwoman Contreras is looking at is, hey, we've looked into this property. So is there any way to get this? Do you have this by any chance on like a diagram you can put up? No? Okay. But basically what we're wondering is, hey, we've looked at this area of property that we're taking over. We've had tree companies out there and given us estimates, or whoever it is you're going to have do the job. I'm assuming you've spoken with them to come up with this number. Mm-hmm. And with this $15,000, we can for sure clean out all the poison ivy, trim all the trees. We're going to have a community cleanup on April whatever, where we have 400 volunteers coming out. If you give us this money, this is kind of what you're going to be receiving. So I think that's what Councilwoman Contreras would like to hear. And then as far as Councilmember Franklin goes, I would have to defer to the city manager. We make decisions all the time to spend extra money. And I know that, there were requests from different departments to, allocate funds. And I know those come from different places as well. Never for a 501c3, but how does it work as far as giving them the money for this? Because it really is taking something off of our plate where, our code enforcement's out there, it's constantly a neighborhood nuisance. I mean, it's not like we're just giving money to, a random person that's doing nothing. We're actually getting something in return. Is that?
Well, we typically don't give money to private property owners, regardless of whether they're a nonprofit status or not. But by the council making a public decision, I'd defer to the city attorney on this, but by the public making a public decision, if you wanted to grant the money to them, then I think it's a public gift of funds, and it's legal in that sense. We would have to come back to you if your direction was to provide money to them. We'd have to determine where that money was going to come from the general fund. We'd also want to work with the Conservancy to make sure that there was an agreement in place on how the money was going to be spent. But I would defer to Mr. Piper.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Yes, if the council wishes to pursue this, I think there are a number of avenues that we can look at. It would be up to the city manager to locate the funding, but we can certainly work on contracts and perhaps some other arrangements that would assist you in achieving.
So an appropriate way of funding that keeps us beyond reproach, per se, is kind of what I'm looking at.
Absolutely.
Okay, so my direction would be, and I obviously want to continue to hear from my council members, but that we direct staff to try to tell us, number one, where the money would come from for the 15 grand. When this does come back to us, that we have a clear plan of, hey, this is exactly what we're going to be doing. We're trimming this many trees. We're pulling this many cubic feet of poison. You know what I mean? Like an actual presentation of this is what your money's going to do. And then we'll actually be in a position to award it. Because tonight, even if we all agreed 100%, we still have to have them come back. So I think just maybe if it's possible to get a consensus from my council members that, hey, we're interested in helping the Conservancy. We want to be able to give this money if we can and remain beyond reproach. And then we also want to work on the annual funding. And from hearing from Councilmember Franklin, the 3222 that we spend annually, that's our cost to maintain about half of the entire trail, just the Malizia property. So the reason I was asking for the $5,000, we've never really given them anything additional for this whole other half of the trail that they all just volunteer to maintain. So it was kind of a good faith additional fund request. And once again, we can discuss that when it comes back. And if the general sense of the council is we only want to give the 3222 that we have budgeted in, we can make a decision at that time when staff brings it back. So what I'm asking for, and you guys can speak, is just a general consensus of, staff, look into this, bring it back, and hopefully we can come up with a good plan to help our good friends at the Conservancy out. Is that fair?
It is fair. Okay. But just to be clear, that without the funding, this is something that we would not be able to take on. No.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big undertaking to just like you said, but it is something that we can do. It is not out of the scope of what we do. This is what we do, and this is what we have been doing for a number of years, since 1998. We've done a giant overhaul project for the past year, and I have a lot of photos of our own side of the trail for before and after that would clearly show what it looks like once it is cleared up. And I think that might help solidify your decision on that.
And I also think that the record that we have of, sheriff's reports and our code reports on the Malizia property as compared to your property, their code reports were about 4 or 5 pages long, and we have 0 on yours. So your reports, nobody's calling and saying, hey, you're not taking care of your property. So for me, and I know my council got to look at that stuff, that was really, telling that you take care of your property.
Correct. And I'm out there at least 3 times a week for a few hours doing trimming, walking the entire trail, looking for the homeless, because I want to make sure that we're proactive instead of reactive. Because as you all know, as soon as any encampment starts, it takes maybe a week and it's doubled in size, if not larger. And so I just like to ensure that everything is good. If there's a tree that's fallen, we take care of it. It's the same with part of the Malaysia property on the actual trail that we don't have anything to do with. One of the neighbors had mentioned that a tree had fallen across the trail. People couldn't get around it. That had been 2 weeks. And so I went out there and I cut it up and we removed it. So this is something that's very personal to me. I want to not only help the city, I want to help the neighbors. And this is something that I really wholeheartedly believe in.
Awesome.
That we're going to do.
Cool. Thank you.
Councilman Franklin.
So, can I borrow this? Yeah, please. So we have the bolded outline area. That's part of the trail, and that's currently the Malaysia property.
Just the middle section that you're looking at there on the paper.
The area in bold yellow outline, yes?
Yeah, and currently the one to your right is the city maintained property already. The Malaysia property's in the middle.
And it's just the dirt path. It's not, they are not doing anything on.
Just that highlighted yellow property there right in the middle where your pen is. That's correct.
But not the bolded yellow outline. What's the bolded yellow outline?
That's already the city maintained trail that we spend $32.22 on our contractor annually to maintain.
Just this portion?
Just everything to the right, yes.
So this is the portion in question?
Yeah, that yellow portion there in question.
So it says city maintained. Are we maintaining this area now?
All of the yellow bolded property, both parcels, are the Malaysia properties.
And are we doing any maintenance on those properties now, the city?
The city maintains the trail through both those parcels.
Trail, but not the property off to the edge of it, outside of the trail.
Not the area outside the trail, which is just the 10-foot wide section within the fence.
And so this kind of addresses some of my question about use of public funds to maintain private property. So we have a public amenity on private property.
We have a public easement over the private
We
property.
have a public easement.
For a
Okay.
trail. That's how we develop the trail.
Yeah. What I'm trying to get at here is the concept of using public funds to maintain private property. So because of the easement, which is basically a public recreation or public park easement, what do we call it?
It's a trail easement.
It's a trail easement. Okay. So there's a benefit to the community from the trail. This is a good use of money.
Yes.
It's not about whether it's a good use of money or not. The question is, and I think we can find the money, honestly. The question is about the principle of using public funds to maintain private property, because there's a lot of private property that's out of compliance with code, that's public nuisance that we'd like to abate. The question is, what are the legal concepts involved, and what is the history of using public funds to abate nuisance on on private property, and what kind of precedent do we establish by doing that here? Those are the questions. That's a big question.
And we don't have a lot of precedent.
So I can answer just the
Please,
maintenance issue.
Mr. Conley, please.
Within the easement, the public easement for the trail, we have those all over the city on private property. We maintain those easements, so there's no issue there because it's a public easement for which we're responsible for maintenance. The question is for the private property. We'll have to do some additional research when we come back to give you some feedback on that.
So this is my question. One of the discussions we had is basically this land's not developable.
Correct.
Okay. So we have an undevelopable piece of property. The owners want out from underneath it. Why not? What is the reason that we don't want to make it parkland?
We incur all of the maintenance obligation for that.
And it's not outside of the trail area, though. It's not really usable for the public.
No, but
Well, how much does the Conservancy spend to maintain Is there a maintenance number right now?
On our own property?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
This past year, it was about $8,500.
$8,500, okay.
There's a lot of trees that also need to be taken down, there's a cost of about $800 per tree to take down.
Totally understood. You understand my concern? You have any thoughts with regard to my concern?
In terms of maintaining other people's properties? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand your concern.
Do you find it to be a valid concern?
Yeah, I do. We don't typically get involved in private property and abating nuisances.
Right. I mean, the other side of this coin...
This is a little unique with the Conservancy, because
Right.
typically we're talking about a private property owner who owns land, but yeah. It's
So
no different.
what I'm trying to get at here is $8,500 is the contribution. I mean, we're not talking about a large sum of money coming into, but we're saying if we took it over as park land, then we're losing $8,500 in maintenance that's being provided by the Conservancy now. I mean, is that basically the crux of the issue?
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say that we did not look to try to acquire the Malizia property either.
No, I understand, but the point is, it's a public nuisance. The owners can't develop it. They're not going to, we're always going to have problem ownership on a property that's not economically viable for its owners. So then the question is, how do we as a community rectify that problem? I mean, now to me, the preponderance of the weight of the argument is now on the side of, let's go ahead and do this, because we've got homeless encampment, we've got public nuisance, we've got the ability to create some better public enjoyment of a piece of land that's never going to be economically productive for an owner. So, I'm not sure I fully understand why we wouldn't want to have it as parkland. I understand the issue with the support of the Conservancy.
Mr. Conley said, it's just taking over more property that becomes a maintenance issue for the city. And certainly if the council is receptive to providing the money to the Conservancy, then you give us that direction and we'll come back with where to get the money from.
So can I interrupt this conversation for a second? We have our city attorney who would like to chime in here. So if I may, Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. If the council is interested in pursuing this, which I sense that they would like more information and like to see if there are opportunities, I think that we can come back with some alternatives for your consideration, possibly some creative approaches, but I don't think that we could probably hammer them out here tonight on the dais.
That's fine. I just want to have a full-throated conversation about, how we're spending public money to maintain private property. That's not a small issue, and it has nothing to do with this parcel at all, respectfully. It has nothing to do with this parcel. It has to do with the precedent of using public funds to maintain private lands, which is something we have a lot of people with nuisance on their private property, and we're bringing the force of government down on them. And we expect private property owners to maintain their property and to abate nuisances, and we can't certainly, as a city, abate every nuisance on every private property. This land is unique because of its adjacency to what is effectively, public asset or public resource, not an asset, it's a resource because it's being maintained. So I respect that. I guess where I'm at right now, if I thought this land was economically viable and somebody's going to come in the future and be able to develop it, then I would want to hold them and press them to maintain it. And take the economic value out of the future value of that land to maintain it. But I don't see that possibility here. So if we're going to abate the nuisance and if we're going to improve the resource for the public, then I think this is a situation where it probably is incumbent upon us to find a way to do that. But I like the idea, and as we discussed in the past, when we gave money to Solutions for Change, we didn't just give it to them. It wasn't a gift of funds. We had a contract for services. It was a definable benefit to the people of Vista. We received a tangible service in exchange for payment. I really like that model. I want to always have a model of accountability to make sure that we oversee and we get something of value in return for the taxpayer dollar. So if we can work out something like that, I'm sure we can, then you've got my support. Thank you.
Councilwoman Contreras.
Yeah, it's Councilmember Franklin. I agree with you 100% on this. I mean, we know that this is an issue. This property is an issue, and we know the benefits. That's not the point of argument here. The point is accountability. The point is making sure that legally this is something that we're able to pursue. And I also have a question, because I know when we were looking at Bub Williamson Park, and there's just a minor discussion of cleaning out the invasive species along the riparian corridor where there's like a makeshift trail. There's issues as far as even accessing that because of Fish and Game or whatever, regulations. So I'm also kind of concerned about that piece and what that looks like and what that does to increase costs potentially.
And I'd defer to Mr. Conley on that to find out if there is an impact where outside agencies would be involved.
So there's certain maintenance activities that you can do within the creek corridor that wouldn't trigger a permit. That includes removing invasives, dead material, underbrush.
I'm sorry, Mr. Conley, can you please speak to the microphone?
A little closer. At Bub Williamson, there's a lot more thick willows, which are native vegetation. So getting into the area around Bub Williamson would most likely trigger a permit just based on what's there. This area is a lot more open, and there's a lot more invasives. So if they were just dealing with the invasives and the underbrush, we could probably do it without a permit.
Okay. Yeah, so these are the types of things. I definitely would agree that there's, it seems like the council wants to hear a lot more about this item. We're not going to shut the door on it. That's the sense that I'm getting. But these are all really important questions. So if we could figure out what the answers are to them, I think it would bring a lot more comfort to the decision-making process when we come down with the final decision. But yeah, it's just making sure that, the $15,000 or whatever it ends up being, that we're not triggering some of these other things that could potentially increase the costs, and maybe there's not enough funding to, complete the job. That's really one of my big concerns, is just not being able to complete the work with the amount of funding that we're providing, and then the issue of that this is private property. So I will, there's a motion on the floor, correct? Or did you not?
There's
okay.
no motion yet.
Okay.
And can I just add one thing? Sorry.
If you can wait for a minute. I see that my colleagues have pushed their buttons again. So I'm going to step in for a minute and say my piece, and I don't have a little button with my name on it over here, so I'm just going to do this. I think this is really very important, and I thank you for bringing this up. And I, too, was out there and had a tour of the area, and I had been out there. It's been a long time. But so I think this is something that definitely is worth talking about. And listening to my colleagues, I agree there are a lot of other questions that we need to have answered before we can actually vote on this. And so I think what I'd like to see happen is for this to come back to the council in more of a formal, fully baked proposal. And I don't know, Mr. Conley or Mr. Piper, do we need a formal motion to ask for it to come back to us as a formal proposal, or can we just give a consensus that we'd like this to come back with the information that we've requested?
A consensus of the council is perfectly adequate.
Thank you. Thank you. So that's what I would propose, is that we come back with this through staff.
And we can certainly work with the Conservancy. We can look at where we'd come up with the general fund money from, work with the Conservancy to find out the cost and everything that was talked about tonight, and then bring you back more of a full report on that so you can make a formal decision.
Excellent. So I would be looking for that. Mr. Green, Councilman Green.
I just wanted to thank you guys all for the discussion. A lot of people don't know that we don't get to talk about this before we show up, so I never have any clue really what the other council members are going to be saying, and having the mayor have to recuse herself kind of even put us in another curveball. So I just want to thank everybody for the discussion. I want to thank you guys for moving this forward and at least getting the information. We all agree, the Vista Conservancy, you guys are doing amazing work for us. The amount of money that you save us maintaining that, and the joy that I get out of walking my little pancake on the trail. Once my knees back up and run, I'll be back on the trail, man. But I've been there several times, and everybody that I talk to loves it and loves what you do. So thank you guys for what you bring to our city. Really appreciate it. And thank you again, council, for just the discussion. I really appreciate your time and efforts.
Councilman Franklin.
Thank you again for being with us tonight, and we'll figure out how to make this help the city clean this area up. We want that. The last thing, and the reason I push my button, is we're going to need those goats down at Buena Vista Park because we've got a lot of poison ivy down there, and I was told there was no good way to get at it, but if the goats can eat it, I'm for that.
I am all for goats, by the way.
Okay. Thank you very much.
If you've got the feigning goats, then you have my wife's vote too.
Thank you, Mr. Coger, for being here and for presenting this tonight.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. I appreciate it.
Excellent. I think staff has a consensus. So with that, we're going to move on, and I'm going to ask that Mayor Ritter rejoin us on the dais. And there she is.
Okay. Good discussion, you guys. Let's see. So next, where are we? We're oral communications. Is that where we are?
We are oral communications.
But we have no speakers for oral communications. So then with that, I will go to, I got some remarks to make here. Let's see. So here's my little comments. As was mentioned during the community survey presentation at the beginning of the meeting, the City Council is holding a special workshop meeting next Tuesday, March the 3rd. I can't believe it's going to be March already. Tuesday, March the 3rd at 2 p.m. in the community room to identify and prioritize our 2020 through 2022 goals. Vista Recreation registration for the spring adult softball season is underway. Games are played March through June, and information is online at vistarecreation.com for that. And one more thing, the Vista Library is celebrating Dr. Seuss' birthday with favorite Dr. Seuss books and fun craft projects on March the 4th at 3 p.m. The Storytime event is free and open to the public. So those are my announcements. So I'll move on down to Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm ready for Dr. Seuss Reading Day. If you've seen my office, I've got it decorated, and I even found some Dr. Seuss books that I have actually never read before. So I am excited to go out and read to the little dudes with my new books. That's all I have today.
I have a stack at home.
Well, thank you to staff, as always. You guys do a great job. You're rock stars.
I was to say, I have a stack at home of Dr. Seuss books that were my older grandkids, that now they're like this, all the Dr. Seuss books. So it's kind of a fun thing in our family. So, yes, Councilmember Franklin.
Thanks again to everyone who came tonight to speak, and thanks for your involvement and concern in our community. We appreciate it.
Councilmember Green.
I echo everything Councilmember Franklin said, and also echo everything Deputy Mayor Rigby said. Read Across America Week is March 2nd through March 6th in the city of Vista. And if you would like to read some books to some kids and smile a lot and make them laugh, come hang out at any elementary school in the district. You do have to contact them direct and go through a minor fingerprint process, but they would love to have you read to their children. Have a great day, Vista. Thanks for watching.
Councilmember Contreras.
All right. Well, every Wednesday at Luz Duran Park, we do a trash pickup. We start walking at 9 a.m., and we're usually back at Luz Duran somewhere between 11 and 11:30. I want to give a shout out to Public Works because they're always so awesome and helping us maintain a little bit of a cleaner and beautiful environment. And I also wanted to say that the first town hall for District 1 and for all of Vista is next Wednesday, so that's March 4th. It starts at 6:30. The doors open at 6 o'clock. and it's at the Linda Road Center, which is 600 North Santa Fe. The parking lot can only be accessed if you're driving south on North Santa Fe. And again, that starts at 6:30. The focus is going to be on safety from a business and resident perspective on the main arterials that surround and go through District 1, so North Melrose, North Santa Fe, East Vista Way, and Beaubier. So please come, join the discussion, and I hope everybody has a good night. We had an amazing discussion today, and thank you, staff, and yeah. Have some tacos. We're getting out early.
I was just saying, Councilmember Green, you didn't tell us it was Tuesday Taco Tuesday. Okay, Deputy Mayor had one more thing she wanted to say.
I was most remiss in not saying thank you to everybody who came out. This last Saturday was our annual Red High Heels walk, which for me this year was flats with duct tape. But I want to say thank you. We actually had a really good crowd. I want to say thank you to our city manager and his daughter for coming out. We had some members of the Women's Club here in Vista and some other groups come out and join us. And my understanding is the Weather Channel said we had 109 minutes between rainstorms, and we got it done in that 109 minutes. It was raining before we stepped off the red carpet, and it started pouring when we got done. But thank you to everybody who comes out and supports awareness, raising awareness for women's heart health. And February is Go Red for Women. So thank
That's
you.
why I didn't come, because it was right at the time of that, and it was raining. I thought, well, surely they're not going to do this in the rain.
we were still
just
out there.
made it. Okay.
Yeah, so thank you.
City Manager Patrick
For
Johnson.
the record, I wore flats as well. Two things tonight. One is subscriptions for the Moonlight's 40th anniversary summer season went on sale yesterday. So if you're interested and weren't a subscriber last year, you can certainly do that now. We do have seats available. And the next season is our 40th anniversary, 5 shows, and starting in May. So if you're interested, moonlightstage.com is the address. And then the last item is volunteers are needed to drive homebound seniors to medical appointments, shopping, and to other destinations. So if you're interested in volunteering a few hours a month at the Gloria McClellan Senior Center, please check in online at gmacvista.com for more information. Thank you.
City Attorney?
Nothing to add this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
How about our City Clerk? No? Our Assistant City Clerk? No. Okay, with nothing else, we are adjourned at 6:57. I missed it by 2 minutes.
Good.